Hey y'all, it's Laura and welcome back to another Cocoa Vanilla Studio Design Team layout. This one, the theme is multiple photos, which is something I do fairly often anyway, but I thought I'd bring in three 3x4 photos. So these are not tiny photos. Quite often if I do a lot of photos, I'll do smaller ones, but if I'm going to do three or more, I do tend to go smaller. But since this one is just three photos, I think we can get away with 3x4s. And my thought process was to use an L shape. So the L shape is a design that I really enjoy, and it has a couple of different iterations. It can be more like a T, less like an L, but I really enjoy a classic L shape that starts in the corner of the layout. So that's what I'm looking at today. These photos are of my oldest son and my brother, so his uncle, and they are extremely close. They're very good friends, and they have a lot of the same interests. They absolutely love video games. And they love to just talk, to just sit and chat. So I thought it would be great to honor their friendship in my son's album by scrapping these really fun photos of him and my brother playing in the pool. Another thing they love to do together. Now these are older photos. These are from 2013. My son is almost 18 years old now. He'll be 18 in the summer. And my brother is still one of his favorite people. He really, really enjoys the friendship that the two of them have, and I am thankful that he has this friendship with my brother. Now, he doesn't get to spend quite as much time with him now, because my brother now has kids of his own, but he does enjoy getting to sit down and have a chat with him when we do visit the house. So I've cut these strips from the Sunkissed collection, and I particularly love this stripe, mostly because it has the red. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, I love this shade of red. It is the absolute perfect shade of red. It's kind of a cherry red, which I really enjoy and would love to see more of in Cocoa Vanilla collections and any collections really. I have a fan. I'm a fan of red. My kids wear it a lot. And so it just excites me when I see that beautiful color popping up in collections. Now in this case it's more of a rainbow stripe, so you get a little bit of everything in this particular paper. This is from the cut apart paper, I believe, from the Sunkissed collection, and I think this is one of the border strips. I love it. I think it's gorgeous. I had to get it onto a layout in a prominent way. So that's why we're doing the L design, the L shape. I've also cut some thin little pieces here in this pink, which is a nice contrast to the blue at the top and will be a nice contrast to the blue in my photos. And I think it adds a little bit of fun, a little bit of energy to the page as well. I've also cut up some from the A5 paper stack of this wood grain color, and that's going to be yet another stripe as well. This is a very simple background to put together. The key is detail in your embellishing. That's where it really counts with an L shape, because you can go heavily embellished on an L shape, you can go fairly simply embellished, but if you go simple, I would definitely add more photos or a larger photo. I've also done this design with larger photos and it works beautifully. In this case though, we're going to use three 3x4 photos. I have matted them onto some beautiful navy paper from the Sunkissed collection, and I think that's going to help them stand out really nicely against this white background and the pinks that I have chosen in the background. So here is my wood grain. I did decide to go ahead and layer my three strips on the page, and I'm just slightly offsetting them, so they're just slightly overlapped over each other, and that just gives the impression of dimension and depth on the page. When you add layers, you are adding the impression of depth and dimension. So that is why I encourage you to add layers on your page. Now here, this is the beauty of an L-shaped design. How perfectly those photos just whoop slide up into that corner. Now I am going to pull them a little bit away from there, give them a little bit of white space, a tiny little bit of white space between the borders and the actual photos. And the reason I'm going to do that is again just to highlight my photos a little bit more. I felt like they got a little bit lost tucked right up next to that wood grain paper. And so by giving them that little bit of white space in between, that actually makes them highlighted a little bit on the page. Now I'm simply stacking them up in a modified grid, and then I'm going to do my embellishing on top of them. So I'm not going to cover a lot of the photos, just the kind of empty spaces, so the areas where it's mostly water. Those are the areas that I'm probably going to cover up the most. Now I'm flipping through a couple of ephemera packs. This one is almost done, and so I'm flipping through it first to see if I can use some of the pieces here. We're going to audition a few pieces as I try things out, see what works and what doesn't. I really liked this Sunshine State of Mind, but I didn't feel like it was quite long enough to go there, and this Sunkissed worked perfectly. It was just the right size for that space. So definitely try out the different embellishments first and make sure that you've chosen the one that works best for you. So I also found this label. I thought that would be great to tuck underneath for my journaling, but I was thinking to myself it would be kind of cool to fill in more of that space under my main photo. So the photo that is vertical is obviously a bit more of a focal image than the other two photos because it goes a different direction. And you will notice when things look different on your layout. So if a color stands out or if a photo goes the opposite direction of the other two, like in this case, that photo is going to stand out to you. So I'm going to treat it like the focal image. I'm going to be putting a lot of emphasis underneath and around that photo and just giving it the focus that it deserves. I love that photo in particular because they were wrestling in the pool and Alex has the biggest grin on his face because he just loved hanging out with his uncle, and they always just have such a good time fooling around, play fighting, you know, talking video games, doing all the crazy things. And I love that he has this relationship with my brother. Alex is my oldest child, and my brother was in high school still when he was born. So they're very close. They always have been, and I'm so thankful that they have that relationship. So as you can see, I'm trying to incorporate some of these little rainbows on here. I figured that worked really well with the theme of these stripes going down the top and left side. I did pull in these little flags on the left side as well. I've been trying to incorporate these flags from this collection on a number of layouts, and I decided just to go for it with this one. I thought it was kind of fun. I thought it added a little bit of whimsy to the page, and I really liked it. And even though it doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense, I don't care. I just really like the way that it looked, so I went with it. Now I did want to use a floral cluster up here at the top left, and it wasn't quite working as is, so I'm just going to modify it. Don't be afraid to modify your embellishments. These were fussy cut from a patterned paper in the Sunkissed collection, and I just simply cut off the little leaves that were poking into my photo a bit too much and rerouted them, moved them to the other side of the cluster, and bam, works perfectly as a corner cluster. I've also tucked a little rainbow and a heart back behind that beautiful floral cluster because it adds a little bit of that layering that we love, doing the same thing on this side but the opposite. So we're putting our floral cluster behind the rainbow instead of in front of it. And look at the really dramatic effect that that floral cluster adds to that cluster. I get so excited about clusters that just come together perfectly. They're exactly what I want. It just happens. Like you just start playing around and auditioning, and then it just works. That brings me immense joy. And so when that happened on this layout, I was doing a little dance and my hands kind of flutter a bit because I'm so excited that it came out even better than I expected. So now I'm going back with the little bits and pieces, seeing what I can use. I've decided to go ahead and pull this darker heart out from the top and replace it with a lighter heart there because I thought this darker heart would make a bigger impact on this cluster, and I was correct. I did cover up that Sunkissed part on the banner that I started with under my focal image because I liked the banner for the color, but I didn't necessarily want Sunkissed to be my title, particularly because I was doing so much clustering on the right side. I really wanted it just to be in the background. And so the way I'm going to handle that is I'm going to cover up the rest of that title with another banner. just cut from a piece of scrap paper. I will layer it on top of that pink banner, and you won't even know what it said before. It will be gone. It will disappear quite nicely. I will bring in some word phrases as well. One of the sets I really liked on here had 2 word phrases that worked rather well together as a full sentence, and I thought I could kind of piece them together and put it across the center of my 2 photos, and I really like how that turned out. I think that gave a little bit more gravitas to those 2 photos, maybe evened them out in the focal image department with my 3rd photo. I just love the way that that looks, and it really did. It gave it just a little extra oomph on that left side. Now I decided to go ahead and fill in this empty space at the bottom with 2 of these little banner flags, and I used the longer one on top so that you get more of a kind of a stair step look going up from the bottom to the top. See the little stair step? Really nice way to lead down into the end of that photo, so it's nice and even, no awkward spaces, no weird gaps. We love that. So playing around with this little scrap of paper, this is what I'm going to use to cover up that Sunkissed word. And initially I intended to use the mixed media side, but it didn't actually show up very well on that background flag, and so I decided instead to just go ahead and flip it over to the dark pink side, which actually works out just as well because it's the same paper that I used to make the tiny little banners at the top and left side as well. So it blends in, coordinates really, really well, and now you can't even see that word Sunkissed. It's gone like magic. So off camera, I will tape everything down, add a little bit of glue to the tinier little bits and pieces. I've already started my scattering, which is the 2-part phase that I finish every layout off with. And I brought in these teeny tiny little florals around the edges of my clusters for my scattering. I'm also deciding to bring in another title. Initially, I thought I was going to use the Paradise little tab there as my title, but I felt like this needed just a little bit something more. I wasn't sure what it was at first, and then I thought, you know what? These glitter words, I think that's what's missing. I need some pop and sparkle. And so that's what I added to the layout. Decided with a very simple title on the bottom left photo, the bottom of the bottom left photo, and I thought it would be really nice to connect the clustering on the right side with these row of flags on the left by just filling it in with the word happy. Now I did find these really fun little pieces inside of the word happy and decided to just sprinkle them about the cluster just because I could. Just a little extra detail, a little extra sparkle to add around the page to help tie in the title. So that's what I did. I just moved those little bits and pieces that came from the peas, I think is where they came from, and just pop them around that floral cluster and just give it a little extra something fun. And I don't know if you're intended to use those or not, but I did. I just went for it, and they just look like little exclamations around the cluster. Look at me, I'm a beautiful floral cluster. That is what that is saying, just in case you were curious. And now we're going to finish it off with the rest of my scattering using some puppy stickers. I found a pair of sunglasses in here that I thought were really, really cute, popped those just there, and then I'm going to add a little starfish in front of my title, and we're just about done. I think I add one more. So I add one more starfish? I guess I didn't. I think I thought about it. I did decide, however, that this needed a border. Not the greatest time to decide that it needed a border. I normally try to make that decision earlier in the layout process, but alas, it just didn't happen. So we're doing it now. And I had to trim down my border just a little bit to make room. I am going to gut this gorgeous navy paper because I do not want to waste a scrap of this gorgeous, gorgeous color. It is beautiful, and I think I have done this now with 3 layouts. I've added this navy border to them because it's just beautiful, and that's all there is to it. Now that I've got my border cut out, I am going to add some tape around the interior perimeter of that border so that I can just set my layout, finished layout, right on top. And it's going to give a little pop of dimension to the layout. You will see this makes a huge difference to the overall view of the layout, and I think was entirely the right decision. So just pop that on top and you're going to see, bam, look at that. It just gives the layout such a pop. Absolutely love that for me. And now this layout is just about done. I'm going to finish it off with some controlled splattering with some Nuvo drops. This one happens to be gold glitter. And then I'll come in with some gold ink spray to do some uncontrolled splattering around my clusters. And the purpose of the scattering and splattering is to add some little detail work around the outside of my clusters to make it feel finished. Those last and final touches really make a huge difference on the page. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, bye y'all.